What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to another episode of the Smark Moment Smack Talk podcast, Hot Tags of the Week, where we're going to break down some of the current events and rumors and news and gossip and hearsay and speculation and scuttlebutt and TV recap and everything else that has happened in the world of pro wrestling over the past few days that we feel like talking about, at least for this podcast. I am your host, as always, Tony Mango. Joining me, as always, are Callum Wiggins.
Hello.
And Robert E. Felice.
Hello.
So, as we normally do here, we want to know what you have to say with these topics as well. Be sure to drop a comment below on YouTube if you are watching there. If you are watching elsewhere or listening elsewhere, then leave a comment on wherever it is that you can. Unless somebody steals this and puts this up on their own website, in which case go to smarkmoment.com and leave a comment there. But if you are over there on YouTube, make sure that you hit that like button. Make sure that you are also subscribed to this YouTube channel and you set up your email alerts by ringing that little notification bell. And as far as some other things go, if you want to help us out on the monetary side of things, beyond just listening to this and clicking that like button or clicking share to pass this along, then take advantage of the different things that we've got up on your screen right now that you can see. Or, of course, if you're listening to this audio only, then I'll just tell you. But you've got the merchandise options of Redbubble and TeePublic. Check out those shops for not only just Smark Out Moment, but A Mango Tees and Fanboys Anonymous. And if you are on YouTube or if you are on Patreon, the YouTube join button gives you access to the same channel membership subscription stuff as the Patreon for the Darkcast and the Pick Your Poison, and the even $1 a month tier ends up helping out quite a bit. And there's also the little thanks button that is out there too if you want to just be like, hey, look, I really like this episode, here's $1 or something. So keep in mind that all the support that we get from you in whatever fashion that it is helps us do more, helps us do better stuff, helps us bring better content to you guys, and then you get to win, and we get to win, and it's all wins all around. That's great. So, win-wins. Nobody has to stare up at the lights. So, let's start getting into some of the stuff. We got a couple of different varieties of topics here. We got some TV recap. We're going to save probably Grand Slam for maybe the main last one that we do out of that, but got some other little things to get out of the way first. One of them being, this one's probably the least interesting topic, so that's why I'm just going to toss it out right now. But I thought it was worth mentioning just because it's a good story to, toss out some positivity. WWE added more holidays to their paid holiday leave. And when we're talking about the idea of like Triple H taking over and Stephanie, of course, taking over in her capacity too, and Nick Khan and everybody, that we always tend to go more for the idea of the creative talent and the writers and the performers are the ones that we focus on because that's the product that we see. But there's more to the company than that. And something like adding Juneteenth, Veterans Day, Thanksgiving Eve, and a floating holiday to the paid holiday leave is just another quality of life thing for the employees there that I can't imagine at this point anybody's going, man, it's so much worse now. They're getting better creative. They're not, as from the reports are concerned, and it seems like this would be the case anyway, it doesn't seem like people are as nervous about their job anymore, or, I'm going to say the wrong thing and then I'm not going to be able to keep my push or anything. And then you get more like paid holidays. Great. Anyway.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely fantastic that they're doing these things, and it's hopefully only the beginning of a change behind the scenes that might not affect us as wrestling fans, but would be a positive for the morale of that great machine that everybody keeps working on, 52 weeks a year. I think this is nothing but good news.
Something that probably should have happened a long time ago, right? Is that something that...
I have a quick question about this.
Go for it.
And I don't want to poo-poo any of this goodwill, because at the end of the day, it's a good thing that they're doing for employees. But I imagine that the paid holiday thing would apply just to employees of WWE, right?
You mean about the independent contractor thing?
Yeah, they're independent contractors. They don't get that. They don't get those holidays. But it's an employee thing, right?
Might be the case, but it might also apply to them too. Because if other people are off, then who's going to run all the extra things to go along with it?
There's no off season in WWE. There's no holidays. Like,
No, they just don't book a show then.
I very much doubt, and again, I may happily be proven wrong, but I very much doubt that this holiday thing would extend to the independent contractors.
Maybe not, but I mean, if they run a show, then they need the other people to do their job anyway. You know, it can't just be those.
It's great. It's great for all the actual like employees of the company and stuff like that. But it's more like just a general feel good thing for the behind the scenes people, because we do have to remember that it wasn't only a year or barely even like 2 years ago where like a good solid like dozens of people behind the scenes were laid off. So yeah, this probably is a very much needed morale boost for
entire departments being gutted and everything. And after 2 years worth of that lack of job security and everything, it's got to feel nice to just be like, cool, I get 4 paid days off extra a year. I can relax a little bit more. Sometimes one day can make a big difference with that, you know? What's that, Rob?
What do you think the floating holiday will end up being?
You
think you just get an Arbor Day as a paid holiday?
Well, can't you take that personally?
I guess maybe you could.
Like, isn't that how that works? Where it's just like, you know, you can do your own floating holiday for like your own, like if you wanted to take off your birthday or something.
Wouldn't know.
Yeah, I've never worked a job that I had a floating holiday.
Alan, you work a real job. You want to fill us in?
We don't have floating holidays. I mean, we just again, it depends on whichever workplace you're working at, but we get, well, I personally get 20 days paid holiday and all bank holidays in the UK, which there's usually about 8 or so. So the grand total is about 4 weeks of holiday time a year.
Nice.
I'm fairly certain that a floating holiday is something that you get to choose. I'm like 99% sure, because I think that's the whole point of it being floating, but now I'm second guessing myself.
It sounds like a holiday where you take it in a hot air balloon.
Yeah, maybe that's the WWE is just soaring to all new heights. They're like, you get to the top of Stamford headquarters, and they just have these balloons ready for everybody, and there you go.
It's the holiday you take after you steal fizzy lifting drinks.
So it can be defined as a public holiday that doesn't fall on the same day on the calendar each year. So, like, you know,
Festivus.
Not Thanksgiving, because Thanksgiving's always Thursday. So it's one of those things. So like a Christmas per se.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a positive thing.
Yeah, it's very good.
As far as other things behind the scenes go, it seems that Gabe Sapolsky has been rehired by Triple H to be a part of the WWE Creative team. So
I'm shocked.
Yeah. Once more moving back into that. Remember a few years ago, this was my plan? Well, we're just going to do that again. And, you know, for anybody who doesn't know, he was involved in NXT for a short time frame, doing the whole Evolve transition over. Really curious to know what their full plans were for that, because it seemed like they were going to go with like an NXT Evolve thing, and what ended up becoming Level Up, and then, you know, 1,000 people got fired and whatever. But what would you guys like to see coming out of Gabe Sapolsky? Are you familiar with his work in particular? Because I'm not.
I mean, I think you might be. Like, I'm sure he had a good hand in the, you know, peak Black and Gold times, right in that like 2019 time frame. But Gabe Sapolsky pretty much booked Ring of Honor in the heyday of Ring of Honor. So like the CM Punks, the Danielsons, the Joes, a lot of that Sapolsky. He's also the direct protege of Paul Heyman, so that gives you some background on, you know, who he is, what he brings to the table. I'm hoping that he's just another voice that can create a cohesive product.
It very much depends on Triple H's approach to creative control, really, because I imagine he will be brought in and he'll do some good stuff. He seems to have the background behind him. He's from a wrestling background, which is good. It's not just, again, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with this mantra generally, but just bringing in TV writers that have absolutely no understanding of the products, it can take them a lot more time to get used to the nuances of professional wrestling, whereas Gabe Sapolsky has lived and breathed it for the last I don't know, 20 plus years, maybe. Yeah, around about that time. So I think that it's a good person to have on board in your creative team. But of course, when McMahon was in charge, it was very much everyone who was involved in the creative team was pretty much supporting players to whatever he wanted. So it's whether Triple H has a bit more of a collaborative approach. And yeah, we'll see how big of an influence he can have. But if he does move into when you said the creative team, is there a particular brand that he's going to be associated with? Because they used to do the sort of thing where it's like you had a different brand, like there were certain rights for SmackDown, certain rights for Raw. Yeah.
So far, I don't remember coming across anything that specifies where he would go. Let me just read another report again. This is from PW Insider. I'm trying to find where that link was again.
I'm looking at it here real quick. It was not clarified where he will be working. So we know that he could be slotted back into NXT if he wants to.
Mm-hmm.
That's really his passion project, because he does tend to like to develop, new talent. But he could also just go to the main roster and work with the Garganos of the world that he really gave a big break to and Evolve, and Street Profits, who he helped when they went on that little excursion to Evolve. Doors wide open. I just hope that I want it to lead to more cohesion, consistent storytelling, just an engaging product.
Hopefully there is more of a committee conference table, all discussed points of view kind of approach, which seems like it probably would be the case, because NXT didn't really give me at least the vibe that it was like, okay, this is one singular vision for every part, the way that it did with Vince, because it was very seemingly like, all right, this is Vince's humor, this is Vince's idea of a tough guy, this is Vince's idea of, and it seemed like a little bit more of a variety for NXT, so we'll see. Let's talk about this idea of, creative direction, where it goes. This White Rabbit stuff that's been going on at WWE. We got more little teases here and there, and it's not just the lights flickering in the live shows and everything. Now we've got a little hangman. We've got this QR code at the back of shot and everything. Are you guys all on the same front that I'm at, where it's like, all right, this is definitely Bray Wyatt, right?
So the first I had seen of it was the video of the SmackDown during the commercial, where they just started playing Jefferson Airplane, the Feed Your Head, and it's like, that's awesome. I think that is an incredible way to engage live crowds. I think that is something WWE has been missing. And I mean, yeah, I think it's Bray Wyatt, and I think that's fucking awesome, because Bray Wyatt is a character that gets a lot of people talking. Good or bad, he's always got a lot of people really excited to see what he does next. And WWE desperately needs that.
The QR code stuff is something that's pretty, like, I would say innovative, but because like QR code's been around for a while now, but it's a unique way of presenting things, and they kind of kicked that off with the whole Zoe Stark thing in NXT, with the whole loading
scan
screen
here,
and the QR codes they were putting up there at different times of the show. So it's a good way of engaging people who can just like pick up their iPhone and just scan it and just see this cool little image of the White Rabbit bouncing around with the hangman thing that they did. The interesting ones were spelled, obviously, the thing was who killed the world, and the answer's you did. What some people also picked up on is the letters that were clicked on but were helped form the hangman were spelled out demon. And so that is an indication of, yeah, this could be a very, very much a themed thing. A lot of people were speculating as well, because even though it is very obviously Bray Wyatt, and I don't think that it's one of those ones where it's like they haven't explicitly told you it's Bray Wyatt, so you can't be upset if it isn't Bray Wyatt, but everyone knows it should be Bray Wyatt, and so people will be upset if it's not Bray Wyatt. It's like that whole rigmarole. It's that some people speculate that it might be something to do with Karrion Kross because he had a White Rabbit character in Lucha Underground. So they thought, maybe that's some sort of thing, but he's already debuted, and so it'd be weird to just completely switch up his gimmick when he's seemingly already heading towards a match with Drew McIntyre Extreme Rules.
Yeah, it'd be odd to have a vignette for somebody who's on the show already doing something else. It would just be like, I mean, it's not been really done before, and maybe you could argue that would be an interesting way of doing something just for the sake of, hey, look, you didn't see that coming because why would you do it? But it wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah. But to be fair, we're going to talk about a couple of things that's happened on this week's WWE TV that don't make any sense, but we'll get to that. But I don't know. There isn't anybody. There's no free agent out there that would command this amount of attention and putting elements towards them. So it has to be likely either Bray Wyatt, which is the obvious choice, or it's a character change for someone already within the company. The most obvious choice for that one would probably be Ali, because they've done things like this for Ali before.
And realistically speaking, if it's a character change for somebody that's in WWE right now, it more than likely would have to be somebody who's not currently on screen. Instead of doing the same thing when it comes to like the Karrion Kross thing. Like, you're not just going to suddenly see Damian Priest do something unrelated to this, or, Omos or something.
Yeah, this would be your T-Bars, your Ollie's, your people who are primarily just wrestling on main event and could easily be repackaged into a completely new gimmick.
Yeah, like maybe. I mean, the maybe here comes with like a 0.01% in my mind, but like maybe somebody like an Ezekiel who hasn't been here in a while, or maybe like a Commander Aziz. But it's the likelihood that's going to be one of those is very, very, very slim. I think that this is pretty much a Bray Wyatt thing. And even though I am well known on this brand for being against a lot of the Bray Wyatt content that I had gotten over the years, I'm excited to see what they could do under a different regime. So I can't tell you who I'd like to see him feud with. I wouldn't go straight to like, oh man, if Bray Wyatt comes back, I want to see this match and that match and that match. Nothing stands out to me that would be all that interesting, but
I'd like
I'm willing to see.
Finish his goddamn story with Alexa Bliss. All right.
I don't want anything more with Alexa and that kind of gimmick. I want her to ditch that puppet. I want there to be.
They have alluded to it, haven't they?
Mm-hmm.
They have,
because they turn the lights off in their match.
And they bothered to make it the main event. And nothing against Bayley and Bliss, but like that didn't need to be the main event.
And they told the whole story of that match is that Bliss isn't herself anymore. Well, the Bliss has lost it. So it would make sense. And Bliss has said in interviews that the best time of her entire career in terms of just creatively and the most fun that she had was working with Bray Wyatt.
Listen, I'll give them a pass if they can put a little bow on it, because that did screw over Bliss, because they started this program and then she was left with nothing.
Mm-hmm. And, maybe under a different direction, maybe it actually makes sense instead of it, copying and pasting the same feud that we've seen before, but it ends up finishing with jack shit at WrestleMania.
Yeah, but that'll be the interesting thing as well, is the fact that how are they going to? Well, there's two options. They either have to find some creative way of writing out the fact that Alexa essentially turned on the Fiend in his final match and separated himself and basically screwed him over in his match with Orton, or, and which would probably be more likely, they just forget that ever happened and move on.
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm assuming. That they would just be like, all right, Bray Wyatt pops up and he's like, hey, my disciple, you've been up to some bad shit or something.
I don't know, because Wyatt's one of those people who probably isn't likely to just let something pass by. I mean, but unfortunately, Orton's not around right now. you can't do that story, even though that is the last thing that Bray Wyatt did. I was thinking because the vignette said 9/23. That's obviously today's date. You just go after Strowman, and it's like, does he try to form a Wyatt family? Redbeard's around.
I would hope that they don't just rehash that, because you can't get Luke Harper back, So it would just feel like it's kind of reverting back to something that we've already seen before.
I think it's unlikely they'll go back to the Wyatt family or him as the cult leader gimmick. I think that the likelihood is, even though with a guy who supposedly has the creative interests and thoughts of a Bray Wyatt, I think that the likelihood is they'll tell him to revert back to the Fiend because that was a cash cow for them. Whether we think that it was creatively the most fulfilling or the most interesting thing is by the by. The fact of the matter is, it sold a lot of merchandise, sold a lot of masks, and all this other stuff. So if that's what people is going to help them earn more money, then they'll tell him, put the mask back on. You're the Fiend again.
With the mask, the only thing I wouldn't want, honestly, would be the Mr. Rogers half of it, because I just think that kind of ran its course.
Well, that's a big part of it, though. That's, again, it's all of it is a giant merchandise opportunity. And this is just coming from my perspective. I know other people don't share this thing. I think Tony's in a similar boat to me. Bray Wyatt, by the end of his run, offered no creative value on the screen. Offered nothing that I actually wanted to sink my teeth into. It doesn't have that kind of appeal to me anymore. Like I said last week, times before, the reason why I'm so happy about this probably coming to pass is the fact that he's not going to end up in AEW, because I don't want him ruining AEW for me. Oh. And so I think that the only thing that he offers, from my perspective, to WWE is that merchandise ability. The merchandise ability of the Fiend is the biggest reason that you would sign him back.
See, my point of view is essentially I haven't liked most of his work because it's built up to a level that it doesn't succeed at, where people go like, oh my god, he's so creative and everything, and it's like, yeah, there are interesting ideas, but nothing manifests out of it. It's fluff. We get promo after promo after promo, and it's just sort of nonsense. It's not that this verbose language that he's saying and all these cryptic things are all interesting enough little tidbits that they drop that you can sort out on your own. It's kind of like, I guess a good way for me to do an analogy for it is, if you're watching a good mystery story, then when you watch it back a second time, you can pinpoint, oh, they set that up there and they set this up here. Like Knives Out. Have you guys seen Knives Out?
Yep.
You should definitely check it out if you haven't seen it.
It's one of my favorite movies released in the last 5 years or so.
It's as much as I hate The Last Jedi, Rian Johnson does a great job on this. So that is a great example of a movie that, even in a modern mystery sense, I watched it back a second time a few months ago, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, they did set this up. They did set that up. That was great. This was a little hidden detail. But even when watching the movie for the first time, it's engaging enough that I want to figure out the story and I want to try to solve the mystery on my own. Whereas Bray Wyatt, most of the things that he had said was just kind of nonsense. And anybody can do that. Anybody can write a song that says all these oh, the darkness is enveloping whatever. And then you go, yeah, but what's the meat to this? What are you trying to say? And then when you start looking at the symbolism, all these words, you go, oh, they don't actually mean anything. It's just buzzwords. I felt like that with a lot of his promos, where it wasn't like he was teasing, say, for instance, if he's going after Randy Orton, he could talk about different things about snakes, and he could drop a little word here and there about there's so much venom running through me and whatever, to the point where you were like, okay, you know what, maybe he's going for a snake kind of thing here. Maybe he's going to attack Randy Orton next. Or maybe the reason why is because of this reference to this, or, you know, if he drops a promo that talks about some kind of an old movie or whatever, then you can go back, watch the movie and go, oh, you know, that movie was about this. And then you know, you can kind of like connect the dots a little bit. It just sort of seemed like he was like, oh, it'd be kind of fun if I don't know, I killed the rabbit this week. And you're like, why? I don't know. Because. So then it got to where I was like, oh, I don't have to pay attention to any of this because none of it matters. It's just the equivalent of somebody putting out some bad song lyrics on their emo journal page for Zanga back in the day or whatever, you know? So I don't want
cutting deep there.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking of the heyday of that time frame, but the Wyatt character has potential, and I don't like the Fiend all that much because the Fiend to me is a guy in a mask, and what's different from him and any other monster? The stupid lighting? God, I don't want to see that back anymore. But if you go with White Rabbit, and he's changing up the formula a little bit, then how's he changing it? And that makes me interested. And then if it's somebody else, I mean, if we're doing all this like, oh, it's clearly that, and then it's just kind of, hey, surprise, Curtis Axel's back or something, then it's like, whoa, okay, I didn't expect this happening.
This is what I'll say. Bray Wyatt does not feel like a character who debuted on the main roster 9 years ago. I feel like he always gets compared to The Undertaker because of the spookiness of their gimmicks. But 9 years into Taker, we were not like, oh, maybe this time they'll get it right.
Right.
So, with Bray Wyatt, I really hope that this is the time they get it right. Because I still think he's got the legacy. Like, he's one of the very few people at this point who has wrestled John Cena competitively and regularly. You know, same thing with Orton, Taker. Like, he's done enough to where he can bring something from a star power perspective back to WWE, but the character needs to hit.
And of course, you know, if and when we find out that it's Bray Wyatt for sure, which could even be tonight for all we know, then we'll start speculating on, you know, where they go with this and all that things. But I'll put it out there that I could see a scenario where we get like a heel Bray Wyatt as one of the top feuds for Cody Rhodes in 2023. I think that they'll probably work well together.
I mean, there's so much story there.
You mentioned legacy. That's another part of it too. So White Rabbit is something to keep an eye on. I don't know too much about Alice in Wonderland to be able to give you too many other analogies there, but I can tell you Pinocchio sucked.
Did you know about the Mad Hatter?
I always thought Martin Short would be a perfect Mad Hatter, by the way.
Oh, he would have been.
So that goes for Batman too. Anyway, let's get into this news about WWE Survivor Series. Came out in the past few days. It seems like it's old at this point just because the news cycle is like, you know, rapid. But Survivor Series isn't just going to be Survivor Series this year or potentially anymore. It is WarGames, which there's a lot to unpack there, even though it seems like that's it. You know, hey, they announced WarGames, the end. That means, number one, most likely we're not getting NXT WarGames, which
I'm all right with that.
When it comes to this thing, I go back and forth. I actually even went out of my way to write up a pros and cons article on EWN about it because I was like, I like some, I don't like some. Let's kind of go one by one here about this. The NXT side, Rob is pro no NXT WarGames. I am also pro no NXT WarGames. How do you feel about that, Callum? Might be muted.
He was.
Was I?
Yeah, you were.
Oh, sorry. Can you repeat that again? My mind just completely blanked, probably because of the muting. I was trying to fix my thing.
For or against the idea of no NXT WarGames?
Oh, I don't think I don't know what would merit it at the moment for NXT. again, this will come down to my overall thoughts about this entire thing, is the fact that I think WarGames is the kind of concept that you should only apply when it's the time demands it, and it shouldn't be something that becomes the basis of a pay-per-view.
Same as what we've talked about with Hell in a Cell in the past.
Yes, that's basically my overall thoughts on the entire thing. Is would I be totally fine with a WarGames match happening at Survivor Series and 1 or 2 WarGames matches happening in Survivor Series? Yeah. I'd think that the idea of Triple H coming out and announcing, it's going to be Survivor Series WarGames, just makes you feel like, okay, so you're going to manufacture 2 WarGames matches when historically, I say historically because realistically, in the last few years of WarGames' existence in WCW, it was always a full brawl thing. Or it was full brawl, wasn't it? It usually took place on. Yeah, so it was kind of just always set for that pay-per-view. And that's, I don't know, it just makes me feel like the approach that AEW takes with Blood and Guts is better, whereas you only do it if the feud has gotten to a point where it should be that match.
That's 100% my point of view. WarGames shouldn't be, it's that time of year. It should be, we've got 4 to 5 people, and this is the match that we're doing. Because I hate the idea that they're going to we got the men's WarGames match and we got the women's WarGames match. The men's, it's pretty obvious at this point. It's either the 4 or the 5 members of the Bloodline. Depends on whether or not Roman Reigns is wrestling. But if they try to go with the whole Usos and Sammy and Solo, it's going to feel like it's kind of a waste. So I'm assuming it's probably Roman is part of it too. And then he's going to go up against 5 other people that are probably like Drew McIntyre and Madcap Moss and Kevin Owens and whatever. Okay. But what do you do for the women's match?
With Damage Control.
We got 3 members there. Do you do a 3 woman?
At the moment.
Right.
Yeah. Do you add me people? Do you just do a temporary alliance and you water it all down where it's like Damage Control and Rhea and somebody against,
That's what they did with the women's one last year for NXT was Toxic Attraction and Kaylee Ray at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Was it Kaylee Ray? Yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah, it was Kaylee Ray. And the first women's WarGames was completely made of, makeshift alliances, and I thought it played out really well. I even think for the Damage Control scenario, I mentioned this in the Triple Threat article on smarkunlimited.com. Listen, if you want to do 3-on-3-on-3, there's a precedent for that. You've already got the 3 from Raw, and if you want, just fucking call it Toxic Attraction. Stick them in the cage and make it for like a women's title shot or something. There's ways to do it. My issue with this whole thing is, man, if you're bringing WarGames to the main roster, I would not have told Dave Schumacher in an interview for The Ringer. I would have had the Bloodline brawling with however many baby faces you need, and then Triple H comes out and goes, I know how we're going to settle this. WarGames. And then you get a huge pop. But now they don't have that.
Yeah, it's another part that goes along with this. Another one being, I can't imagine that we have Survivor Series matches now. Because are they really going to have the flexibility and the time and the people to put in the matches and everything to go with a men's WarGames match, a women's WarGames match, a men's Survivor Series elimination match, a women's Survivor Series elimination match? This kills the brand warfare thing, which is good in some ways, bad in some ways. Good in the sense that it never fucking made any sense because it was never for anything. Nothing got accomplished. But it's also like, man, then we don't get like Gunther versus Bobby Lashley.
That is fine. They can fucking be, they have a creative team. Be creative and figure out another way to get there. You are not going to get me to say a single bad thing about them ending the brand warfare idea because the last 3 years it has completely sucked.
That is one of my more positive sides is, if we don't have Raw versus SmackDown, I mean, I like the idea of Raw versus SmackDown. I'll put it that way. But I've been arguing since it happened for 2016. I've been like, okay, well, why does it not matter? There's never once been any purpose for it. And they could have easily figured out different ways around it. It could have been my go-to suggestion has always been two different things. One, if you want to keep it as simple as possible, just say the winning team gets a bump in their paycheck. And even though we aren't necessarily invested in it, we can understand why they are. But if you want to make it something that has actual consequences and ramifications going forward, make it to where the winning brand ensures that they both get the men's and women's number 30 spot in the Royal Rumble. Because then if you're like, okay, well, I'm a heel like a Baron Corbin, and I don't want to get along with my team, but if I get along with my team just well enough that we get our point and we win for SmackDown, then the likelihood that I get that number 30 spot, I've now jumped a 50% increase because it's definitely somebody from SmackDown. I think that makes sense. And instead they ended up making it every year just, it's Raw versus SmackDown for bragging rights. Why? Especially because they typically ended up doing the draft right beforehand. So it ends up being, okay, you just are a member of Raw. The fuck do you care if Raw wins? It's not even like you have a general manager that's like, okay, guys, we got to beat the other general manager. Adam Pearce is running both shows, so who fucking cares, you know? So I think that's a major positive to get rid of the brand warfare stuff, even if the logo is, you know, Raw and SmackDown red and blue already.
That's exactly why I'm a fan of it. But I also think WarGames fits in very well with Survivor Series. You know, it could be argued, if you want to be cheesy with it, it's the ultimate match of survival. It's still teams of 5. You know, you still have Survivor Series aspects to it. And I don't think that this means you can't do Survivor Series team matches, even if you did, hey, we're going to do 3-on-3 elimination. It's still, you can still do whatever you want with Survivor Series. And this makes it seem like, okay, now I'm interested. How we get in there? Who's going to go into WarGames? I just think that there's a way to do this without announcing it's WarGames just because November.
I think it does kind of, to steal your phrase a little bit, boils down to it's a cheap pop for Triple H. And to be fair, a lot of his early run in creative is generating a lot of cheap pops to give himself a lot of goodwill. And I think even though we could all kind of agree that maybe we disagree to the extent, but there has been obviously creative improvement in WWE across all 3 shows. It is mainly kind of small minor changes that we as quote unquote hardcore wrestling fans appreciate because we're the ones who are actually watching the product anyway. Whereas there haven't actually been any significant sweeping changes to how the show is produced or presented or anything like that. The biggest kind of change of that nature is matches seem to be a bit longer. But other than that, it's kind of just Triple H building up a body of goodwill because it was so bad before that even doing something that's mildly competent or interesting is going to get so much more of a bigger reaction from people.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the changes that we've seen have been almost just to undo the bad rather than to initiate the good.
Yeah, it's just bringing back people who were fired. And it's like these little subtle backstage segment things, this QR code bunny stuff, and announcing WarGames and bringing Bailey and Dakota Kai and Io Sky together. Again, it's all really good stuff, and I don't want to like devalue it in any way, but it's kind of just, you know, small things in the grand scheme of things. Like, we still are yet to kind of know or figure out, and maybe he hasn't figured this out yet, maybe it's something that's coming in the meantime. What's the big story in WWE right now?
I think, and this is pure speculation from me, but I think you have to get through whatever you're doing with Roman to where he can go, okay, now what's coming next is mine. And I think that whenever Roman does drop the belt, and goes away for a little while or whatever, that's when we'll see Triple H's major story. Because right now, he's like in the tutorial level of a video game. He is walking around collecting the easiest, bonuses. Hey, I'm bringing back Bray Wyatt, if that is what he's doing. Wow. The final of those cheap pops, I think, comes when Sasha and Naomi actually come back. But right now, it's just a walk in the park for him. And at some point, probably after Mania, we're going to need to see, okay, so what is the Triple H era exactly?
Yeah, I mean, I think he can kind of write off everything up until Mania, in a way, where they've got some ideas in place and they're kind of working towards that, but at the same time, they're still, I mean, like any kind of job. Again, I've never worked a traditional enough job to be able to be like, this is exactly how it works, but I would assume this would be the case, that when you get a new shift manager or you get a new CEO to some wherever place it is, that there's going to be changes and there's going to be this adjustment period of them trying to kind of figure out where they want to go a little bit and carry over what the previous regime was doing. And maybe a couple months down the line, we start to see, all right, look, we've settled into this new rhythm. We've kind of established what we like, what we don't like. Maybe they have some people that they're interested in calling up to the main roster to replace certain people. Maybe they're going to release certain people. And, I mean, some stuff we can see pretty quickly change, like, giving people their first names back, where it's just like, all right, we can do that change now, and it's not going to change anything except for this little stupid thing. Like, you can say the word hospital. Okay, cool. But I think that if you were to go with something like, okay, well, the grand scheme of this whole setup of the United States Championship being focused is, I really, really want to make those titles mean something more. I think we'll look back on it. We'll do a Wrestling as 2020 for like the first year of Triple H in charge or something. And then we'll go, okay, so this is where he was leading. Kind of in the same sense as, he's talked a little bit more about it this week. This wasn't really a hot tag, but I'll toss it out there. That he's explained a little bit more that the game plan for NXT is to have like NXT Asia, NXT South America, NXT, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then do this World Cup. We're not going to get that for a while. And he might change his mind and things might tweak because they seemed like they were kind of heading in that direction anyway with NXT India and NXT Asia or NXT Japan or whatever they would have called it. I think it was probably NXT Japan, but I think that we might end up seeing those things more so at least post-Mania. And then this WarGames thing, maybe it's just a temporary thing. Maybe it's just for this year. He wants to do the WarGames thing because they've got the bloodline. And then next year, we go back to the regular Survivor Series. Or maybe we even go back to the way that Survivor Series used to be, where it was just like the Warriors against the Maniacs, and then the whatever. That'd be kind of fun to do a little bit more of those things. But I don't like that we don't have currently announced, maybe they change, Teams of 5 fight to survive in an elimination match. Because I'm just like, oh man, that's Survivor Series. And it's interesting to me that Survivor Series is like, I guess this is an outdated phrase, but like the redheaded stepchild of this whole thing, where if they fuck around with any of the big four events, it's Survivor Series. Like Royal Rumble, they do the first one, it's 20 men. They do the second, it's 30 men. And they've tweaked a little bit here and there where they've had like the 40, or, they eventually added the entrance music for everybody, and hey, this rule applies this year and that thing. But it's basically, look, Royal Rumble, you're going to get 30 people in the ring, and the winner is going to challenge for the title at WrestleMania. WrestleMania is the main thing. There's no gimmick for it that sticks around. It's just that it's the big show. And Survivor Series has its gimmick versus SummerSlam doesn't have a gimmick. But every couple years, it seems like they just have a report like, we're thinking about getting rid of Survivor Series, or, well, this year we're just doing a tournament for the title, or, well, this year we're replacing that with, I think it was 2002? They didn't have any elimination matches, and 98? 98 was Deadly Games. And 2002 was the Elimination Chamber, right?
Right, they added the chamber to give it that element of elimination.
Which
and I
is,
think they had the elimination tables match as well.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say as well. And to be fair, like, arguably, and again, don't want to speak for everyone, I've seen a lot of, I see a lot of people talk about how those are two of the greatest Survivor Series ever. The two ones that don't have traditional Survivor Series tag matches.
Because there's more stakes attached to it, too.
Mm.
And then, traditionally speaking, the Survivor Series matches, they don't accomplish anything. But I do like when somebody can say that they're a sole survivor. Or, I don't know. It's the traditional side for me that kind of goes, well, Survivor Series should have Survivor Series matches, and WarGames should be set up for, you could do it at, WarGames is a special attraction for Extreme Rules. Why not?
The thing is, and I get where, look, I don't like the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view either, but if you do it in the right way, they don't necessarily have to change the time of year with which you do it. Like, if it happens next year, we will know for a fact Blood and Guts is like end of May, early June. That is when they do Blood and Guts. And you can do that without having to slap you across the face and go, we're just doing Hell in a Cell matches because it's the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. So if you have WarGames every year at Survivor Series, fine, I guess, but just make sure that you're building to, you block it out. You're like, all right, well, we know WarGames is one thing we have to get to. Let's make sure there's a good match in place, because otherwise, don't do it.
And the fact that you need to do two of them because they're going to do the men's and the women's, I don't think that they can pull it off. I think we're going to end up getting 4 or 5 basically random people put together, and that's it. Like we've gotten with NXT. And, when it's the Undisputed Era against people, okay, cool. When it's just guy and guy and guy and guy against guy and guy and guy and guy, I don't care. Give me that in a Survivor Series match and let me save the cage. But, some people are going to just be like, oh, cool, WarGames. I like it. And then that's all that they care about. And if you're like that, hey, power to you. I'm not going to complain that you're happy. Put it that way. Let's talk about some recap stuff here. Let's bounce around a little bit. Let's go to Monday Night Raw a few days ago. This whole week, my perception of which day is which has been totally off. So, doesn't feel like this has been just a few days since Monday, but we got Seth Rollins losing his United States title shot at Bobby Lashley. We've got Kevin Owens beating Austin Theory by pinfall. Brawling Brutes ended up having a match with the Street Profits. We got a lot of heat for Dominic Mysterio in the Judgment Day promo. That was something.
Yeah, yes. Again, it doesn't change my opinion about the fact that he's a bit of a waste of space on TV in terms of just being very devoid of charisma, and he's sort of like just capable wrestling ability. Like he's kind of fine, but he's nothing stand out. But this was eye-opening in terms of how much he's despised. And again, there is that ever-running debate of, was this just X-Pac heat? Is this just is this people just don't want to hear him talk, or is it a legitimate heel reaction? At this point, I don't think it really matters, because at least it's a reaction. So that's kind of what Dominic wants at the moment. So fair play to him.
Yeah. Credit to Rhea, who Dominic messed up the line. He was supposed to say Poppy, and he said Mommy, and she just rolled with it and said, yeah, we switch it up sometimes. Rhea Ripley is the best thing about Judgment Day, and Finn Balor is getting up there. And this Dominic promo was good because it establishes him, if nothing else, and I know Callum's going to hate me for this, but if nothing else, he'll be like Baron Corbin, who, is Baron Corbin the most exciting wrestler? No, but he does always get a legitimate, fuck this fucking guy reaction. So Dom will at least have something, as opposed to just, hey, I'm here and my dad's here and yay. And this was another good week for the Judgment Day that finally have some kind of leadership and direction after kind of shit in the bed the entire run. But I'm interested to see where they go with things now, because it looks like they're going to get AJ back involved and loop him back around in this too.
And I kind of feel like AJ's there to fill in the role that Edge was, because he's just going to take time off, and they're like, I don't know, fucking AJ gets back. But not the, most grandiose episode of Raw. We talked about the Bayley and Alexa Bliss stuff at the end there, and Dexter Lumis had some more stuff with the Miz, and there's really...
We talk about Miz TV and like how, all right, like enough's enough. Where the fuck are we going with this? And why does this exist? Why does this exist? Why are people cheering Dexter Lumis for appearing in the Miz's home when the Miz has toddlers and a wife? And
right.
Like, yeah, he invaded your home. Yeah, fuck you, you asshole. That's right. He was in your kid's room.
Like, woo, what? Stalk that family.
Like, what is happening? Why are they doing this?
It's not the most effective storytelling by any means, no.
My guess is still it's going to be that Ciampa's letting Lumis into Miz's house. And it's all a Gargano family loop thing we got going on here.
I don't think Ciampa's involved in it at all. I think that it's just they think it's funny for a guy to do that to the Miz because fuck the Miz.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. When they eventually have to explain it, I think that's the explanation they go with. They could always just not explain shit, but that's the things we're trying to get away from.
Let's leave it on this message that Tony just said. Fuck the Miz.
Let's go back to SmackDown from this last week. We had Logan Paul talking about how he wanted to request a match with Roman Reigns, and eventually we got that press conference, and we're getting the Crown Jewel match and everything, which, I mean, we'll talk more about that when it gets to Crown Jewel, but as far as setting up this week's episode of SmackDown and going back and looking at last week's, hate to say it again, but there's not too much that I feel like, well, man, I'm so excited about that, or this seems super interesting, or that crazy thing happened. Like, they're advertising tonight, Roman Reigns returns. Okay, well, he should be there. The Brawling Brutes are going to go against the Usos. Okay, cool. Like, I'm interested in that, but I'm not like jumping out of my seat or anything.
This is the general thing that I think a lot of people need to open their eyes to a little bit. Yes, this new era of Triple H booking is definitely more competent and more structured and more well put together. Really fucking boring. So there's really nothing going on in WWE right now to really get you interested or excited.
It's coasting in a lot of ways.
Exactly. And fair play to them. They can get away with that because they're still sitting on $1 billion a year TV deal, and they don't need to rock the boat too much, because rocking the boat could go badly for them as well as much as it could possibly go well for them. Admittedly, that and the most recent episode of Monday Night Raw got absolutely killed by the two football games that were going on against them and just like died in the ratings, but that's to be expected. It's football season. Their ratings will plummet because that's what happens. But yeah, this Logan Paul announcement, I've gone back and forth in my mind about how good an idea it is. And realistically, if the objective of professional wrestling and the objective of pay-per-views and big shows like that is to promote an event and get the most people interested in watching the match and seeing what happens, then realistically, Logan Paul is probably the best choice that you can get for a world title match against Roman Reigns.
Mm-hmm.
Because it does point to the continuous problem, which seems to be no way of course correcting right now, in the fact that none of their actual wrestlers are over enough to the point where they could be challenging Roman Reigns for the title. But that's like something that they need to work on and get better at. But right now, Logan Paul is someone who actually generates some buzz and interest, even though everyone knows the result is pretty much locked in. But again, we'll talk about that when it's closer to Crown Jewel.
At least you could say that they make the argument that I'm seeing plenty of people that are like, if Logan Paul wins, blah blah blah, and it's like,
yeah,
they got you, you know?
Yeah, it's that element of buzz and excitement to it. It's not like everyone knows kind of in the back of their mind or even in the front of their mind that Roman Reigns is definitely going to win that match. But it's that one that creeping element out, like if they put the fucking WWE title on Logan Paul, then that hooks you in.
I saw a lot of people like genuinely upset about like, why are they doing this? And I've said this, I don't know about on air or off air, but I've said to you guys, well, they're doing it in Saudi because first of all, Saudi needs, they want those big drawing matches. I guess Goldberg wasn't available, and you've already done that with Roman in Saudi, but also it's Saudi, and Logan will get a reaction that isn't just boo, go away, we can't believe you're getting this match. So it makes sense to do it here. I didn't have him challenging Roman in his third match. I thought he'd eventually get a title shot, but maybe when the belt is on someone, like a Rollins who can carry Logan for the match. Not that Roman can't, but like this Roman is more built around, all right, I do my 3 moves and then we're out of here. But I think the press conference was good. They're letting real, podcasters and journalists like AEW does. The questions might not be as sharp, but they are letting real people in. That's cool. This is kind of a thumbs up for me all around. Obviously, if they were to let Logan Paul beat Roman Reigns, that'd be insane. But also, I'm kind of here for the chaos if they let Logan Paul beat Roman Reigns, because fuck it, it's something new.
Well, again, we will talk more about that when we get closer to Crown Jewel, but if you want to get closer to your family jewels, then you want to make sure you use our sponsors for this episode, Manscaped, because they are the best tools for that. Like in particular, that lawnmower 4.0 and that weed whacker. Make sure that you are taking care of what's going on down below because it's fall, fresh ball fall. And you can get 20% off and free shipping with your promo code of Smark for anything that you pick up on the website. You can get your deodorants and your scrubs and all the things that go along with just taking care of it on that front. But then you can get the tools that can trim everything up, get you nice and shaped up for whatever you want to do. If you're like an Edward Scissorhands type and you want to make sure that you got a specific design going on down there, to each their own. It's maybe not necessarily something you need to share in the comments below, like when I always say to tell us what your product that you ordered. But you got those little extra mats that you've got down below too as well that you can clean up all those trimmings. And if you pick anything up on the site, I can pretty much guarantee you that you're going to love it because I've tried everything on there. I've loved all the different products that I've tried, and I know that there are plenty of different people that can attest to the same thing because we have had this partnership going on for a year at this point, and still people are continuing their subscription services. You can get like new razor blades shipped every interval or anything that if you use those kind of razors. I know people that use the shears and that's their favorite shear kit. I'm pretty sure that's the same thing when it comes to you, Rob, right?
Yeah, I use the shears. I mean, honestly, the weed whacker, the deodorant, use it every day. All these products are fantastic.
Yeah, and you can see some of them on your screen right now in this little revolving video that I've been using for quite some time. But they do incorporate some new products here and there, so you should browse the site, see what you're interested in. And as I said before, if you use your promo code of SMARK, SMARK, then 20% off and free shipping applies to every single order that you do. So use that while you can. And we want to thank everybody for anything that you do when it comes to the Manscaped stuff, including just thanking Manscaped for sponsoring us for this episode. Let's go talk about NXT. Now, we talked about Monday Night Raw, we talked about SmackDown a little bit. NXT had been pre-recorded ahead of time, and the results had all come out there. But one major result that wasn't set up in advance, because it was a backstage tape thing, so they didn't air this to the live crowd, is that it started off with Solo Sikoa vacating the NXT North American Championship. He had Carmelo Hayes there and Shawn Michaels there. HBK basically said, look, you weren't the scheduled opponent for Carmelo Hayes. You didn't win the poll. You weren't even in the poll for people to vote for. So I appreciate all you've done in NXT, and I wish you the best of luck for SmackDown and everything, but I'm going to need that title back. And Solo gave it up, said, I told you that I had next. And we're going to be settling a new NXT North American champion at NXT Halloween Havoc with a fatal 5-way ladder match. Carmelo Hayes is already in there because he is the former champion. 4 other people will be qualifying. One of them already has. That's Oro Mensah after he beat Grayson Waller. We don't know for sure who the other 3 people are going to be because even though we know some of the results, it hasn't been specified that, okay, this is a qualifying match. But it could be like
did say Tony D versus Wesley would be.
Oh, so that is the one of them. That's right. Yeah, we do know that one. And then we know the results of that one. So if you want to know who wins that one, you can go to smark.com and you can see the spoilers for the September 27th episode. We know a couple other matches that are coming up that, could potentially be in the mix for that. But I think that we still have a little bit more time to settle on those other 2. Generally speaking, what do you guys feel about this whole North American title situation?
Fucking stupid.
Okay,
is that 3 of us?
Yeah, it's so fucking stupid. Why book yourself into this kind of corner?
Yeah, they didn't need to do this.
Yeah, it was just the whole concept of, okay, they took out Wesley and Solo Sikoa came out. So for however long that match was, 15, 20 minutes, you decided, let's not send anybody out to interrupt this match or get the referee to throw this match out or tell the referee, may not start this match because, this guy isn't supposed to be on it. Maybe let's not play his entrance music when he comes out to challenge Carmelo Hayes.
Why was he backstage if he's a member of the SmackDown roster anyway?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to do something like that, then you have to have Solo beat him in about 2-3 minutes and just walk away with the title. And it's just like, okay, we just weren't quick enough to get there, and then all this confusion happened. Secondly, you don't have Solo Sikoa defend that said championship on SmackDown against Madcap Moss.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw people on Twitter saying, like, well, Sean doesn't have any jurisdiction over SmackDown. It's just like, fuck off, this is so dumb.
Yeah.
And then the whole temerity of, like, he strips him of the title and then won't give it back to Carmelo Hayes, even though supposedly that match should never have happened, and yet they're trying to tell the story of, oh, you can't mess with the system or anything along those lines. Also, it's just super funny that it's Shawn Michaels of all people that's telling him this. It's just like the guy who stretched the system as far as anybody else possibly ever could.
He found Christ. He's a different man. You can't do that. He's just a by the books lawman now.
Yeah. Telling Sikoa, like, as he's handing the belt away, so like, I know what it feels like to vacate the title. Yeah, I know you do, because you did it to make sure you didn't lose the title in certain matches, but that's neither here nor there. So Solo's out of NXT, now he's just up on SmackDown. Like, the only argument I can even suggest for it is the reason they did it is so they could have Solo hold the NXT North American title in that press conference to just try and get a bit of eyes on it. I don't even know if Solo was even at that press conference, but if he was, then okay, so holding the title, and so like, oh yeah, that makes it a bit more buzzworthy then. But now we're also heading towards our second 5-way ladder match this year for the North American Championship.
They love.
Mm-hmm.
I know, and it's funny because it's Sean and Hunter, so maybe we should see this. But they love ladder matches for the mid-card title. To be fair, like, because of those guys, like, that's one of my favorite things as well. But I don't know if I would book it as much as they do in NXT. They're constantly doing, like, oh, you know what, ladder match. You know, I have an idea, ladder match. It's a little silly, and I will say, I don't want to retread too many things Callum said there, but I will say, I can maybe forgive, hey, Solo Sikoa is back in NXT. Okay, he beat Carmelo Hayes. We let him do that because there was a pre-established grudge. And I can even understand Shawn Michaels saying, getting the belt back, except for the fact that he defended it on SmackDown. They could have even set up on SmackDown, well, you know, there's been some rumblings that Shawn Michaels and NXT management aren't happy with the fact that Solo Sikoa did that, but the Bloodline does things their way. There you go. Like, at least set up the idea that we're not happy that this guy has the belt. We don't let him defend the belt. But whatever. You did what you did. You got the little pop. You got the Bloodline photo with everybody holding the gold. I get it. Now, on to this ladder match. I don't know who's going to win, but I do know I don't want Carmelo.
I don't want Carmelo Hayes to get that title back again because we've had 11, I counted it when you were talking, 11 instances in WWE this year, mostly in NXT, the only other one being the women's tag titles on the main roster. 11 times this year, a belt has been vacated or unified in some way. 11 times. We had it with the North American title now, tag team titles. The women's tag titles were vacated. The Cruiserweight title, remember, that was actually a thing this year. Carmelo Hayes won that title and unified it. The UK title vacated and then eventually unified when we got it settled a new champion with Tyler Bate. Women's title for UK unified. We have no idea about the Heritage Cup and then the UK tag titles. I'm tired of the unification and vacation and whatever thing, but I'm also tired of the idea of Carmelo Hayes loses it and then he just regains it anyway. Because why not just keep the belt on him if that's the case? So I want it to be somebody like maybe if it's Wesley, he wouldn't be my top pick, but maybe at least you get some purpose behind that. But why Dawdle?
Wesley's the kind of guy I would go with. Even like
but like Josh Briggs could make a good champion, or you could go with Tyler Bate. Yeah, you could put the belt on another heel and give it to somebody like a Von Wagner if you want to try to do something a little bit different, because he's not the same type of wrestler as Carmelo Hayes. But if it's just Hayes again, then all you want to do is take the belt off of him for a couple weeks and then give it back to him. Stop it. What's the point?
If they do that, I'm going to laugh and go, I guess Shawn Michaels really enjoyed his career, because that's, Michaels did a lot of that as well. As Callum said, he's forfeited titles to get them back. And if you just do that with this guy, then I'm going to go, okay, that's just Shawn enjoying Shawn.
I hate this idea that this happened, though, because this is the type of stupid booking. We got to be fair, because in my mind, fair is fair all the time. Criticism is available for everything, even if you love it. If this was under the non-Triple H regime, I'd be like, God damn it, why do they keep doing these things? But under the Triple H control, you're still doing these stupid things where it seems like they did it just for a swerve. Because they set this idea up of like, you vote on these three people. Ha ha, that guy didn't get in it even though you voted for them. And we get this, out of left field. And then he won the title, but we don't really want that. And that's been a running thing in NXT for a while now. If you look back to the past year, how many times have they given a championship to somebody just for the sake of giving it back to them or something? We did it with Toxic Attraction, where they lose it to Raquel and Dakota and just win it back. And then they lose it to Cora and Roxanne, who just give it up. We got the situation with Noam Dar winning the Heritage Cup, loses it to Mark Coffey, then he just wins it back. You've got Pretty Deadly, our two-time tag team champions, because they win the titles when the Creed brothers are very, very clearly going to be the ones that follow MSK. But we got you, Pretty Deadly. Okay, let's get with the Creed brothers because that's where we were planning. We got you, that was Pretty Deadly again. Like, this sort of, they're all doing that, the bop and whatever that Tyler Bate does. You put the hand up and then you punch with the other hand. And it's like, my God, fucking stick to something every once in a while,
And again, as much as things change, as much things stay the same, and repeat after me if you know what I'm about to say, it's moment-based booking.
Mm-hmm.
That's what WWE thrives in. It's their comfort zone. It's the thing that they rely on most. It's about just having something which is good and exciting in the moment, and then we'll come up with whatever's next afterwards. And I still think Triple H is still in that mindset because when NXT was at its peak of booking, he could rely on the fact that he was booking 4 weeks of shows in one taping. And he was pretty much he could basically mold an entire 4 weeks worth of stuff in one here, and then it moves forward. NXT creatively started to fall off when they started to have to go for a 2-hour show live every single week. I don't think Triple H thrives in an environment where he has to book week to week live stuff. And it's something that he'll have to get used to, and hopefully he gets better at it over time. But I think it's still something that he's finding a learning curve with. And also, the jury is out on Shawn Michaels as a booker still.
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of people have just immediately said, like, oh, Shawn Michaels is booking NXT. It's great because it's Shawn Michaels. But he could be crap. Like, Dusty Rhodes wasn't a great booker, but he was Dusty Rhodes. So people kind of just, like, got on with it. It's like, we don't have... just because he was a great wrestler doesn't mean he has a good creative mind for other wrestlers. Might be a great trainer, might be a great personality to have, but only time will tell whether he can actually, build stars and generate some interesting television.
Same as when it comes to movies, even. You could be a great actor, it doesn't mean you're a great director.
Yeah. So, yeah, as I say, jury is still out on a lot of things creatively in WWE. So, as much as small things have improved and competency has definitely gone up, and it's definitely not absolutely horrible anymore, I still err on the side of saying whether it's certainly not great, and I still err on the side of whether it's still like good right now or whether it's just competent.
This definitely is something that I'm not all that happy with. It's not the end of the world by any means. It's not the type of thing that, hell, I'm going to stop watching wrestling because of this, but it's just one of those like, fucking, why did you bother with the thing? Because I could understand if you kept it on Solo, because the idea that, well, everybody in the bloodline has a championship and we can cut some more eyes on NXT by having the title defended on SmackDown. But to give them the belt just to give it like, okay, but never mind. Hot potato stuff very, very rarely sits well with me. I can understand if there's an injury, then you got to give a little bit of leeway. They didn't plan on it. Like, AEW has been in a fucking shamble with that. If you look at the list of the title reigns for this year for AEW, it's just as much of a mess as the WWE thing is, because we just got, okay, well, Punk wins the title, gets injured, then you give it to Moxley as an interim, and then you give it back to Punk, and then he gets injured. That's the whole thing. But look, they didn't plan that out. WWE had the option that they could have just gone with the Wesley match, or they could have just gone with whatever. They chose to do this. I'm just kind of curious why. Other than that, I mean, the NXT stuff was pretty, straightforward. We talked about it before. Dragunov's back, so that's cool. And so on and so forth. Nothing else really going on there that I feel like talking about. I don't know if you guys do.
I mean, it was interesting they had Chase University beat Carmella Hayes and Trick Williams. So
maybe Chase gets in there. Maybe he's one of the ladder match people.
Yeah.
By virtue of beating Carmella.
Oh, I will say Chase U stuff is over in that crowd. Yeah. That crowd loves
so
Chase U.
It's so much fun, because people want to go and have fun, especially when you're going to that small venue. It's just like, all right, I know I'm not getting Adam Cole versus Johnny Gargano or whatever, but I will enjoy the time I spend at this wrestling show.
I'm still not super sold on JD McDonough in this current format. It's just,
he had a good match.
I think it's the thing. I think he works well with Tyler Bate because Tyler Bate is his size, and then he goes up against Bron Breakker and it just doesn't work. But yeah, other than that, there isn't really that much super exciting. Like, they're starting to build up a Wendy Chu versus Lash Legend match, which should be shit. But that's on Lash Legend side of things, not Wendy Chu's.
Would you say it'll put you to sleep?
The sleeping is going to be the best part of it. I think, yeah. But yeah, other than that, it's just pretty standard episode of NXT.
To go with Mandy and Kaylee Ray or Alba Fire, you think Alba Fire beats her?
Nope.
I doubt it. But I still have no idea who they're actually going to position for it at the moment.
It doesn't feel like it's Nikita anymore.
Well, no, because I won't spoil the result because you can check that on the Smark website. But next week they're doing Kaden Carter versus Nikita, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're clearly positioning Zoe and Nikita for a tag title shot.
Right.
Next. Doesn't mean that they'll necessarily win the titles, but it means that that's kind of where they're positioned right now.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to look back in a few months now and see where they ended up going with some of these titles, because there's no clear choice for who could beat Mandy Rose. They could just go back to like Roxanne or something. They could end up with Nikita. For all we know, they could bring somebody else down from the main roster. Then it's just going from a main roster person to another one or something. But currently right now, we're still waiting for the next phase of NXT to fully start, because they kind of kept some of the stuff going on. I feel like they're waiting and they taped these 2 weeks so that they can kind of freshen up the set a little bit, but we'll see that in 2 weeks 2 weeks from now. Let's talk about some AEW stuff, because we had Grand Slam. There's a lot to unpack for this one. This is our main event of our non-main event podcast, where we don't talk about main event, funny enough. Oh, that too. Before we get into AEW, anywhere on that front, Rob, that you are aware of? You tracked it a little bit more.
I haven't heard anything about Hulu reaching a deal with WWE, but if they don't, then by Sunday, I'm assuming it probably goes into effect on Monday, there will be no more WWE content on Hulu. I
am really hoping that we get on Sunday that it's all taken off and that they don't record a main event match on Monday, because I don't want them to stick around on Hulu. I don't see the point. Main Event's a stupid show. Nobody watches it. You don't even put it up on your website. Knock it off.
They could just put it on Peacock like they should be. But, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, you got to deal with Peacock for that. You want to boost some content on there. Or not boost some content. You want to put some content on there. It's not going to boost anything. Nobody's fucking watching that show. But anyway, over to the AEW side of things. We got Arthur Ashe Stadium in Queens. I did not go, despite the fact that I could have potentially, but yeah, didn't book a ticket or anything. I figured that it wouldn't be the case. Next time around, I might have to if I'm still here. But we started Grand Slam off with a new Ring of Honor World Champion. Chris Jericho beats Claudio Castagnoli.
I didn't see this coming, and damn it, maybe I should have, but
I didn't either. I thought that it was just going to be Daniel Garcia comes out, stops Chris Jericho from cheating, and that leads a little bit more towards that. I'm like, fuck. Actually, my go-to reaction, I was eating at dinner at the time, and I didn't set this up ahead of time because I'm like, Jericho's not going to win. So I'm cutting my baked potato up, and I'm, enjoying that, and my chicken that I've had and everything. And Jericho gets the pin, and I put my fork and knife down, and I go, well, fuck. And Caroline's like, what? And I'm like, I got to change something on here. It's not like it's like I didn't cut myself or anything. I'm just like, God damn it, I have to get off my ass and do something. I kind of like it, though, to be honest.
It makes perfect sense from multiple perspectives. So they basically telegraphed this to a degree with Jericho saying that he'd never won the Ring of Honor World Championship, and he's won loads of other world titles. And I think they really like the Ocho as well, so I think they're going to run with that for quite a bit. That's going to be his new thing for a little while, I imagine. But it makes sense because he's obviously such a legendary name that him holding the Ring of Honor title, that adds more prestige to the belt. And above all else, they're looking for a television deal right now. And so who do you strap the title onto? Your biggest wrestling star, pretty much, is Chris Jericho. That's who you went to when you were trying to get AEW launched in the first place. And so who do you turn to when you're trying to get Ring of Honor a television deal? That's going to speak a lot more. As great as Claudio is in the ring, he doesn't hold anywhere near the star power of Jericho. And so that's great for him. That's great for, at the end of the day, Claudio got what I think we wanted for him obviously it's a bit unfortunate that his title reign has to be kind of condensed into the myriad of Ring of Honor and AEW titles there are right now, so it kind of got lost a little bit in the shuffle. But Tony Khan did the thing that Vince would never do, which is made Claudio a world champion. So he can always tick that off now. Will always have been a Ring of Honor world champion. He might be again in the future, we don't know. But this opens up so many possibilities for the Ring of Honor title. And right now, he's holding the title, and I'm thinking, I'm really looking forward to whatever Final Battle ends up being. Because you know that he's main eventing Final Battle, and there are two names that immediately spring to mind of who he's facing.
Who?
I'm worried that they go straight with Garcia, and I'm hoping that they drag it out.
Yeah, so that's the thing. It's like, one of them is Daniel Garcia. That's a really good choice. That could even be a title unification match with the pure title. If they don't want to go forward with the pure rules approach, they could do a pure title versus Ring of Honor title match, and that could be the launching of Daniel Garcia as like Ring of Honor's new hot young star, or it could be Danielson. But Danielson and Jericho 1-on-1 in AEW. It could be the rubber match, and that could be essentially we'll talk about it later on. But Bryan Danielson's not the AEW World Champion, so he could be the Ring of Honor World Champion at some point.
I think he should be. I think if you're going to get it off of Jericho by Final Battle, and the goal is still to be hyping Ring of Honor on TV, you got to go with Danielson, because you need a guy who people know Bryan Danielson. Hell, there's some people who straight up know Bryan Danielson from Total Bellows. You know what I mean? Like, so if you're going to go with a notable wrestler, it has to be Jericho. It has to be Danielson. So I'm excited for what they do.
I don't know if I have a preference between Garcia and Danielson when it comes to that, because I can see an argument for both. And if it's Danielson, I think it's straight up just, okay, well, you might not necessarily have wanted to make him AEW champion, but you make him ROH champion, and it makes sense because he's got the history with the company. He is a wrestler's wrestler and all that. But I could see, maybe this is heresy to some people, being a little bit more of an outsider to this. I could see something potentially happening with the pure title being unified and ROH kind of becoming a little bit like that's the gimmick. That maybe the ROH title is the pure title. You know what I mean?
I think that if they were going to do pure rule, they would just keep the belt. But I could see them wanting to merge the titles just because, okay, pure wrestling is a huge part of Ring of Honor, but they've gotten rid of it before. And there's no reason they can't just do it and bring it back again at some point.
And just have it be every once in a while somebody defends the Ring of Honor title in a pure rules match, you know?
Yeah. I mean, the reason why I think there's a good possibility of the unification is because the match that Daniel Garcia won the title against Wheeler Yuta wasn't a pure rules match. So they could easily just say that they seem to be transitioning away from that as the overall concept. Mm-hmm. But then again, if and when Ring of Honor does get its own TV show or streaming show or something along those lines, they might just say, okay, now you don't have to share the same platform with AEW all the time, and so your titles can be a bit more prominently focused. So yeah, we can go back to having a pure rules division. But I think that the likelihood is that Jericho will hold the title at least until Final Battle, which should be in December. And that means that I'm in two minds about who it is, because obviously the bigger marquee match is Danielson. And so that makes sense to have that as the big match for Final Battle. But if you really are invested in the idea of pushing Garcia and making him a top star going forward, having him beat Jericho the first time they meet in a match would be a really good way of doing it. Alternatively, you could have Daniel Garcia versus Jericho at Full Gear and have Jericho win that match. and that could then be the catalyst to push that, and then do something to him post-match, which adds a bit more animosity for Danielson, and so that ends up with him challenging Jericho at Final Battle for the title, or either way, whichever way you want to do it. I think he should defend the title against one of them at Full Gear, and then lose the title to the other one at Final Battle. And I don't really have a preference or think that there's a wrong way to go either way.
There's another guy that they could put Jericho in the ring with. I don't know if Jericho's fought Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe has the Ring of Honor TV title, and Ring of Honor ain't got TV. So, if you ever wanted to merge anything, maybe that. Like, I think Joe would be a great person for Jericho to go against and beat. I think Jericho could make the argument, now that I'm the TV champion, let's get this bad boy on TV. Because I think Jericho loses it on the first TV show. Unless it's Danielson at Final Battle. I think Jericho loses it on the first Ring of Honor TV show, which I assume would be in the first quarter of 2020.
I don't know, of course, what the plans are for TV or whatever, but if I were running things and, maybe things would be a little bit differently or whatever, I kind of like the idea of merging the TV title with the world title just because I don't like the TV title to begin with. And if you get Samoa Joe versus Chris Jericho at Full Gear, that'd be fucking great. So I'm down for that. I'm down for the Garcia idea. I'm down for the Danielson idea. Despite the idea that the Claudio thing was like, man, Claudio's going to lose the title. I do overall like this Jericho as champion thing.
Me too.
And that wasn't the only time that we got a new champion crowned, because we followed that up with the Acclaimed winning the AEW World Tag Team titles over Swerve and Our Glory, which of course we all said, like, you gotta fucking do it, Huge pop. That's great.
Not as good of a match by any means, but huge pop in New York City for the Acclaimed. And they got it. They got their moment. This is awesome. I don't think they'll be champion for long, but I could be wrong. Maybe we just keep riding this gravy train.
Yeah, I think that, the match was very good. It certainly wasn't the all-out match. That match just kind of just is a capturing line in the bottle thing. You just can't recreate it. And so the wish was that they did call the audible at All Out, and then it would have been even better. But they still managed to get the title win in front of a big crowd, and it was a great reaction for them as well. So I think that I think plans have been thrown out a little bit when it got to the tag titles. I think that it's all been in a bit of flux ever since the Jeff Hardy thing, where the likelihood was the Hardys were going to win the titles at some point. Then it went to the Bucks, but then the Bucks were supposed to win the trios titles, and so they had to drop it. So they dropped it to Swerve and Keith Lee, and I assumed that they probably thought they're going to go to FTR after that, and then the Acclaim got super over with Scissor Me Daddy Ass, and so they had to pivot to the Acclaimed. And I think you have to leave it with the Acclaimed for a while because they are just so unbelievably over. And yes, I know not everyone, but a lot of people want to see FTR with every single belt hanging off of them.
Yeah.
But maybe the window's just passed on that. You shouldn't just curtail the Acclaim's momentum just because you can give FTR another belt. They've got 3 of them already. I think they're pretty good going.
I think my only argument there would be it kind of sucks that you've curtailed the plans for FTR because everything seemed to be pointing to, all right, let's go Bucks FTR 3 for all the belts, because the Young Bucks could have easily laid a claim to the Ring of Honor and New Japan belts, and I think that, yes, you can't curtail the Acclaim, but FTR's got to get it back while they're still super hot, because if the moment passes completely, there's going to be a lot of resentment for a lot of people, I think.
I mean, at the end of the day, I kind of feel like that people are just going to be mad one way or the other, because now you're in a situation where people are either going to be mad at you because you took the titles off the Acclaimed really early, or you're going to be mad at you because you didn't give it to FTR. So realistically, and people are just going to be mad, and eventually they'll get over it because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things.
I guess that's fair.
So do what they think is best. And if they think that there's a lot more life left in this title reign, then I don't think they should just do it for the sake of giving FTR the titles. I think that they could tell a story of FTR losing all the other titles in the next couple of months. And then they're just like, okay, we've now got no other distractions. Our firm focus is on the AEW title. And then they just win it from whoever the team is at that point in time. And then they just are fully focused on AEW, and that's just them moving forward, and then they can hold the titles for a considerable amount of time. I do think the FTR will be AEW Tag Champions again. I just think that the Acclaim's meteoric rise up the ranks means that they need to hold it for a little while before dropping it to whoever they end up dropping it to.
After that, we got the MJF thing with Wheeler Yuta. We got Jade Cargill doing some stuff, setting up basically some matches that we now know the results for and everything.
It's 8 fucking matches on Rampage.
It's a 2-hour show.
I know they've done this. I know they've done the spoilers for it and stuff like that. So, and I haven't seen them because I don't usually look at the Rampage spoilers. But it's pretty ridiculous to try and fit 8 matches into 2 hours. But then again, that is what they do. So,
Grand Slam at this point to me, between the two shows, is like their 5th pay-per-view. Or I guess 6 now. You have Forbidden Door. Like an extra pay-per-view for them. Better or worse, because I think it's too much. But that's it.
We got the AEW All Atlantic Championship staying put. Pac retaining over Orange Cassidy.
I hated this. Look, I'll just say for 5 seconds they made me think that they were gonna have the referee be a little competent. He looked at Pac and was like, "There's no way you knocked him out with a punch." And I was hoping that they'd do the stupid thing that they do sometimes, where, no, for some reason this referee feels like telling the truth and running down and saying, "No, he hit him with the hammer." They didn't do that. Pac hit him with a hammer, and I think it killed a little bit of the buzz, because if you would have had this title go to Orange Cassidy, followed by what happened next and the awesome main event, you'd have had a show of nothing but highs. So I really think this kind of killed some momentum, but I like Pac.
I honestly didn't watch the match or the segment. I was busy. I just figured Pac's going to retain, and then he did. So I missed the segment.
I mean, it certainly didn't have the intrigue surrounding it that their first match had, because that whole match was built around the fact that Orange Cassidy hadn't wrestled yet in AEW, and so there was a lot of intrigue about how he would wrestle and the fact that he's actually, not just a meme, but a good wrestler. This one didn't have that because they've already established the fact that Orange Cassidy is a good wrestler and he's had a lot of good matches with a lot of really good people. And so this match certainly wasn't bad, but yeah, the finish was weak, and I think they seemingly are turning Pac heel off the back of that. But I don't know whether that means all of Death Triangle are turning heel, or whether Pac is just now separating from them.
As they become the Trios champions, which, by the way, you could have given the belts to Best Friends. Look, I'm not saying, I get it, because Pac has wanted to be a heel since the damn company started. They just never been able to get off on the right foot with him. But to even say that Pac would have to use a hammer to beat Orange Cassidy just feels like it just felt flat to me in every conceivable way. And I would have just, Cassidy's going to win, let Cassidy beat him. If Pac's going to win, have Pac beat him definitively because he's a better wrestler. This thing, it drags it out in a way that I just don't know if I want to see. And I think it would have been a huge pop in Arthur Ashe, and that's what I was looking for.
Well, what did get a huge pop is after the next match, where Toni Storm retained the interim AEW Women's World Championship, Saraya made her debut. For anybody who doesn't know, that's Paige from WWE. Her name's Saraya. And she basically came out there and stood, because we don't know what she's capable of doing at this point. Seemingly, maybe not necessarily even medically cleared to compete. But she, she came out, everybody did the whole like, oh my God, she's here, and Britt Baker and everybody looking completely stunned. This is obviously one of the biggest stories of the week, and I don't know how to feel about it, to be honest. I understand a lot of it from different perspectives, so I can see where a lot of people are coming from when it comes to being, if you're a big Paige fan, then it's like, oh my God, this is so cool. If you are concerned about her health, I totally understand that as well, because look, I get nervous every time Edge wrestles. At this point, I get nervous every time Sheamus wrestles. Paige, Saraya, I guess get a little used to calling her that more. We know she's had a rough time with her injury. This is well documented at this point. And neck injuries and everything, they're not something to play around with. So if she wrestles, which we don't even know is a guarantee, if she does, I'm going to be so nervous and biting my nails the whole time that I don't know if I'm going to be able to actually fully enjoy it. It's going to take a while at the very least. Like, at this point, Danielson, when he goes out there, I'm like, all right, I'm a little bit nervous, but he's probably going to be okay.
He plays it to a fucking T. Every time he collapses in any way in the ring, you're immediately scared for him. So
right.
It does add an element of intrigue into their matches.
Every time somebody gives him a clothesline or something, it's just like, oh no, come on, that's not going to be the one, right? Like, it's kind of, but I don't know. Maybe she's gotten some kind of clean bill of health or something. Maybe that's a little bit better than what I'm imagining. But I also kind of have to admit, I still just think that the women's division probably isn't going to be like saved from her. You know what I mean?
I think. Go ahead, Callum.
I think. Go ahead, Cal.
Oh, you go ahead.
All right. So I think Paige, more than saving the women's division, Paige deserves the second chance. Maybe, arguably, even more than Edge and Danielson. Paige never got. She's seen as like this trailblazer, right? But she never got to actually have a run. It really feels like a lot of what she did was tail end of butterfly belt era, kicking off the new era, and then she didn't get to enjoy the fruits of her labor for the new era. So if she can go to AEW and have like a year or two of some solid matches and wrestle, I'm all for that. But the one thing that I thought was weird here was that she clearly came down to save Athena and Tony. And she's clearly inviting Britt Baker into the ring. But if you're clear that she's going to wrestle, I would have had her hit the page turner or something, because it would have gotten a massive pop and it would have established, okay, she's here to wrestle. Now let's go. This way, you kind of go, well, what if she's not? And then you go, what do you do with her? Because I don't want to see her as a manager.
No.
But I could see her as you make her on-screen commissioner of the women's division, just to kind of say, we're going to do more with the women. If she doesn't wrestle, and I fully think she's going to wrestle. But that's a way to get eyes on the product, and I think, for that generation of people, Paige deserves this, and I think it's a fun ride for her.
Yeah, the pop was huge. That was great to see after, like, following the match, just see her come out. You have to credit whoever leaked that information out to Sean Rossap and the hours beforehand to just make people feel like, oh, Saraya has been in talks with AEW over the summer, but there's a lot of thoughts to think that she might be going back to WWE as well. And then she just pops up the day of that report coming out. So that's great. So clearly a coordinated attack by whoever is the one leaking the information out there. But yeah, the reaction was huge. I think that if she is medically cleared to compete, that's a benefit to AEW's women's division, because, like, say what you want about some of the people they have signed, like Ruby Soho and Athena. Saraya's in a bit of a level above that's a level up from those people that were essentially perennial mid-carders in WWE's women's division. Like, she was at one point one of the top stars of their entire division, so it makes sense. And also there's the intrigue about the fact that she hasn't wrestled in like 4 or 5 years, so that adds a bit of excitement. It is interesting to think about how she hasn't wrestled so long and she's been retired, and she's younger than Britt Baker. So that's an interesting thing to look at as well. The fact that she's 30 years old. So if she is cleared to compete, then she could have a lengthy career in front of her if she can stay healthy. But again, there will always be that element of wincing. But then again, I'm watching Sting wrestle a lot of weeks, so how can I be wincing too much when there's a 60-something-year-old guy who had neck problems wrestling every week? So, or not every week, but wrestling a consistent enough schedule. So I think that if you keep her appearances limited and she is healthy, then this is a great acquisition for their women's division. Again, I'll still hold my breath. I won't hold my breath in terms of everything turning around in terms of the women's division, because they have a track record that they need to address. But signing someone of this caliber could be the thing that spurs them into motion. So yeah, I can't really see anything but positives off the back of this. I think it's a good acquisition for them. And at the end, even if she doesn't wrestle that much, I think she's a great promo. I think that she could be a good person to help spur the Jamie Hayter push as well, because she is a British previously Ravenhead girl. That they could have some kind of kinship, and that could be she could be the person that drives the wedge between Jamie and Britt Baker, and help as kind of her mentor or manager or anything like that, help spur Jamie Hayter into the next level. So I think that however she ends up being used, I think it will be overall positive for AEW.
After that, we had our.
Actually, one more thing. I want to talk about that. We'll talk about the match a little bit, not in great detail, because we've already spoken a lot about this show in general. But we'll talk about how worried you'll be when Paige, if she does wrestle, gets in the ring. I'm kind of worried every time Britt Baker steps in the ring, because
she's bleeding.
She had her face blown up in this match.
Well, you saw that coming when she's going for Athena's going for the full-away slam Samoan drop combo, and I'm thinking, I don't know, visually it doesn't look like, okay, the more powerful girl is holding up these other two. It looks like something's about to go wrong here, and splat, Athena sits on Britt Baker's face, and she's busted open, and I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, she seems to get injured practically every match that she has, or suffer some sort of like busted open or injured the wrist or anything along those lines. And I think she seems to revel in it, which like she is tough, and so that is good to see. But it's just it just adds more fuel, I imagine, to her fire about the fact that Thunder Rosa decides to give up the title and not work her, whereas like I think that there's a lot more credence to the fact that maybe every time she does get injured, she almost like wants to rub it in Thunder Rosa's face a little bit more. Like, I'm busted wide open. I might have a broken nose, but I'm still going to finish this match because that's what I do.
It is a recurring theme. She's kind of bleeding in some fashion in a lot of her matches at this point. Kind of like a Jon Moxley. But he is our new champion again. He beat Brian Danielson.
At this point, just run with Moxley. I don't know what they have for MJF, and I know Moxley was supposed to take a vacation, but fuck, at this point, just go to Double or Nothing. Moxley, just let the man hold the title for a long time in front of people, because he deserves it at this point.
Thoughts,
it wasn't what I expected. I expected Danielson to win. I think a lot of people felt that way just because it would be something new. But at the end of the day, like, Moxley's your ace. He's your top guy of the company right now. So it makes sense for him to hold the title. I don't necessarily think there's going to be a long reign again. Because realistically, even though it was quote-unquote interim, he was world champion for all of the summer. He might have just been had that interim in front of him, but he was the company's world champion for that entire time. So I think that him holding the title again is good. I think him being the guy that MJF defeats for the title in whatever fashion that ends up being, or whenever that ends up happening, is the right call, because Moxley's kind of the heart and the soul of the company, and MJF, his whole mantra is that he's taken that title to use it as a bargaining chip to help secure him a big contract, either still with AEW or going over to WWE and taking the title with him. So I think it makes a lot of sense for him to hold the title. And at the end of the day, maybe Danielson, the kind of guy that he is, maybe he just said, I don't want to be world champion. Like, let's have Moxley win this match.
I 100% think that's what it is. Because people forget, Danielson, at the end of the man's run, was straight up like, yeah, I'll lose to Drew Gulak, and I'll lose to Otis. What? You want me in the main event of WrestleMania? I don't really think I need to be in there. So I can totally see Danielson being like, I don't want to be a world champion. He can have it.
Then when the ROH title comes along, maybe he changes his mind.
Well, no, I think he'll be like, yeah, sure, because I'm ROH guy, but he'll immediately transfer it to someone else.
Yeah, and plus, it's not the same level of commitment. But it makes sense to go with Moxley for a few different reasons. One of them, of course, being the idea that, hey, the guy was holding down the fort and starting a feud with MJF, so why would you pivot? And then, not opposed to it. It's just, man, I kind of want to move past this whole situation with Punk and just, I don't know, maybe Punk shouldn't have won that title from Hangman Adam Page in retrospect, you know?
That's why I'm thinking have him hold it for a while, just so that, like, you remove all, ties to the constant hot potatoing, and you can make people forget about the Punk thing. Well, they won't forget, but, move on from it. And I don't know if I'd say in hindsight Punk shouldn't have won. I'd say in hindsight maybe he shouldn't have won it back. But I think Double or Nothing was the right call.
Yeah, I think people will. There's already the people who are like the sky is falling, thinking that kind of mentality, or the people that just want to see AEW burn. Talking about how CM Punk's return is the most disappointing thing in history, and because of the way it ended, it's like, no, it's not. He was there for a very good period of time, and he had some good matches, and he had a really good feud with MJF, and he won the title, and yeah, it all ended up blowing up in their face at the end of it. But I don't think, again, I always go back to if Tony Khan knew all this stuff was going to happen prior to, saw the crystal ball and just saw that all this stuff was going to happen, he still would have done it, because at the end of the day, he was the guy that brought CM Punk back, for even if it was only for a short period of time. But I think that it's it's a good idea to have Moxley hold the title, and the stuff with Punk happened the way that it ended up being, but now Moxley gets to hold the title again. He gets to be the ace of the company, and I don't know when MJF will win the title, but that he's the next champion, almost certainly at the very least. So it'll be interesting to see what the story is leading up to that, and how long it is before he cashes that chip in. But the match itself, I liked and didn't like. The match itself was great, and I liked the fact that they showed MJF in the stand holding the chip, because that meant that you didn't have to worry about it being a cash-in, because he was there and he was just watching. So you kind of could just say, okay, he's not going to cash in. It's not a Money in the Bank situation. I can just watch the match. Or at least I know he's not going to cash in until after the match has happened. But I also don't like the fact that it was almost a triple threat match, because of the amount of times that they were panning the camera over to MJF to just see him watching the match. Like, yeah, I like these two guys. I kind of want to see them wrestle. I don't want to see MJF's facial reactions every time. It was like John Cena in the when he was sitting in the crowd at WrestleMania 30. Was it 33, 34? I can't remember which one. 34. Just sitting in the crowd, just constantly watching the matches going on. He was almost a bigger part of that than the wrestlers themselves. So didn't like that, but match itself was good, and Moxley as champion is a good thing.
All right. Well, the hot tags that I got written down are all they're all taken care of. Anything else you guys think of that we should address?
I think we're good. I think we're covered.
I think we're good. Yeah.
All right.
Busy week. SmackDown will happen tonight, and then we'll know for sure maybe about White Rabbit, and we'll go from there.
I mean, tonight could be one of those interesting episodes that by the time next week comes along, we might end up just being like, oh man, it's a shame we don't do the hot tags on Friday nights because such and such happened, but kind of leaning more towards...
If it is just Wyatt, I think with the way the news cycle moves, by the time we get here next week, it'll be like, and Bray Wyatt happened also. Yeah, that's right. The thing.
For some reason, somebody is laying on their horn outside. I don't know why. There has been a car horn for a solid minute. I don't know how they haven't figured it out yet that they're going to waste it, but, hey, hope that the person's horn dies. Sorry about that if you could hear it in the background, everybody. The game plan for the next episode that you guys are going to be coming your way is... I mean, we got obviously, whatever the hot tags happen, we're going to talk about them next week, but we currently are thinking about maybe doing the Missed the Smark for that Heroes of Wrestling show. That is seemingly the plan. We'll let you know if that changes, of course, if it comes around to that, but that should pop up around Tuesday, Wednesday, somewhere along those lines. And then we start getting into Extreme Rules and everything after that. And, we've talked about before at the end of the year, we're going to round this thing out with these couple of different episodes that we normally do. But if you have any suggestions of what you'd like to hear from us going forward, we always take that into consideration. So if you are like, man, I'm really clamoring for you guys to do something or other, let us know. You got to pick your poison tier as well, where you can make sure that we do that along the lines of whatever it is that you feel like doing. And of course, if you follow us on Facebook and Twitter at SmarkOutMoment, and if you go to amangotree.com and you check the links that are going on there, then you should be aware of whatever it is that is heading your way, including the stuff that is on smarkoutmoment.com that's outside of the podcasts. Of course, if you go to fanboysanonymous.com, you'll find everything that's happening over there, which, good stuff all the time. We got some fan tracks and everything, and hopefully more content coming your way on that front as well. We've got other things happening on other kind of channels. Like I do stuff on EWN and I do stuff on Bleacher. So, for instance, I got an article coming out soon of how I would book the Roman Reigns and The Rock feud. I wrote it a week in advance because I was like, I got this in my head. So let me just knock it all out. I'm pretty proud of that one. I think that certain people will end up being like, that's a good story. I like this, but I don't know when that's going to get posted. So just stay tuned to my social medias at Tony Mango. Then you'll eventually see that pop up here and there because I have that automated. So, follow me all over the place and make sure that you follow these guys as well. Rob, go ahead.
You can follow me everywhere at Dude Philippe. You can check out what I'm doing over at Fightful, and you can check out what Sean's doing over on Fightful Select. Assuming this goes out before midnight, I will be on the post Rampage / SmackDown post show with Alex Pulowski, reviewing everything from Rampage, Grand Slam, and SmackDown. So if you like hearing my opinion on things, check that out. And you should check out all the content on Smark Out Moment, including the Triple Threat, because I regularly contribute to that. And you should check out what Callum's got going on.
Yep, so over on the Smark Out Moment website, you can find the Power Rankings, which is my week-to-week contribution, goes up every single Saturday. And there you can find my thoughts on who I've ranked up to the top and bottom of the whole WWE totem pole. So check all that stuff out. You also find the Fantasy League. You can also type into your browser just wwefantasyleague.com, and there you'll find the latest standings in all three of our teams that we drafted way back in April. And see who's top of the tree there as well. See who's picking up points on a week-to-week basis. And if you want more from me, you can find me on Twitter at Wigmeister14.
Alrighty, everyone. That is it for this episode of the Hot Tag. So we want to thank you, of course, for joining us for this and for all of your support in whatever way that it is, including just hitting that like button. And we will see you next time with, probably miss the Smark, but we'll see. So stay tuned. But for now, this has been another Smark Out moment, and we are being counted out.